Thank you everyone for being here. So my name is Jacopo Nardiello. I'm the founder of SIGAP. We are a startup focused on, so we were born with the mission of actually overcoming lock-in. And our mission was to leverage open source as much as possible within enterprises, enable the actual adoption of open source within companies. Recently we have been acquired by Rivo. Rivo Cloud is a cloud service provider based in Italy. I will talk more about Rivo later. I want just to highlight that I'm kind of involved into the community. I'm currently a CNCF ambassador, and I'm part of the Linux Foundation Advisory Board for Europe. So it's, I really believe that collaboration is key whenever, you need to actually leverage open source and make it viable, make it practical, make it like, usable. One thing I want to highlight again is that, so this is going to be fairly high level, but I'm actually from the trenches. So we have been working on the field for like many years, pre-Kubernetes 1.0. So it's been like, we've been operating, cloud native stuff related for like, 10 years or more, okay? Let's talk very quickly about Rivo so that you get an idea of our operations, okay? So again, we are an Italian company, recently expanding to France and Spain. We operate 5 data centers, 3 in Italy, 1 in France, and 1 in Spain. And we are extremely focused on certifications and regulations. As you might guess, that's a key point. And right now, it's especially important. Okay, regulators are pushing a lot. We have been hearing, Enzo talking about, the Data Act. There are many others. There is the CRA, that's another super large topic. There is the AI Act, and so on. And so it's especially important for, to make all these services viable to actually be regulation compliant. And so we have a ton of certifications. We have been investing a lot into that. So yes, that's our value proposition. We want to allow you to run stuff in cloud. We are a small service provider, but at the same time, we want you to adopt it in a safe way. All right. So what are the key challenges that we are facing and we have been facing over the last years? So the very first thing, it's a wrap up of Brian talk and a mix and match of many other things that emerged during the other talks as well. The very first thing is that we want, of course, to grow and compete. That's super difficult. Because why? I mean, hyperscalers, we don't have the resources, right? The size of projects, the size of, the pace of technology, it's just unmatched. And stuff, it's getting even faster. So there's no like slow down. You just can't stop. And so how can we compete into that environment? The very second key point is about governance. Data governance, regulations, and so on. How do we stay compliant? That's a key advantage that we might have if we are able to stay compliant, but that's not to be taken for granted. So data governance, of course, and local regulations. In Italy right now, there is a super strong push on that. We have the so-called PSN, which is the Polo Strategico Nazionale, which is the strategic national data center cloud infrastructure, sort of, where you need to integrate. And it's not about, it can be an opportunity, because if you are an hyperscaler, you're going to be disadvantaged into that, okay? We have sort of an advantage from that standpoint, and if you are into the public sector, it's not about where you're going to run. You have to run there, okay? It's just a no question, no brainer. And then, of course, we need to stay compliant to the standards. So we need to make sure that we are, in order to acquire new customers, in order to grow our business, we need to stay compliant to what the large vendors are doing. And again, sustainable pace, as I said, stuff is moving super fast. So for us, that's historically true for SIGAP, but it's especially true right now for Rivo as a CSP. for us, it's actually open source. It's actually a competitive leverage. What do I mean by that? It's the only single thing that allows us to be compliant, to move as fast as the industry, and I'll show you a little bit what we have built later on and what I mean by that. And again, remove lock-in, so allow companies, customers to move, you know, and at the same time try to reduce as much as possible the lockout that Brian was mentioning earlier. So up until today, what we have done, and actually this event, has been a great source of thought for me. I've been thinking a lot about, you know, the concepts that have been exposed. Up until now, we have been working basically, you know, we've been focusing a lot into the cloud native ecosystem, not as much as a technological platform, okay, but as an open standard source. So as SIGAP and now as Revo, we are building and maintaining our own distribution, our own Kubernetes distribution. And we have been using that as the technological platform to actually try to build an open platform based on open standard that you can deploy anywhere and that you can maintain across different cloud providers. It is true what Brian was mentioning. I mean, you're building vertical platforms which are locked into, you know, into a single cloud provider. You're building platforms which are, again, compatible, but not interoperable. So it's not easy to actually move one thing to another. And yeah, so that has been, you know, a lot of source of thought. As of today, what we have built is basically a Kubernetes version, so we maintain our own distribution, as I was saying, and then on top of that, we basically add monitoring stack, logging stack, policy stuff, you know, all the things that basically are part of the landscape of the CNCF. Okay, that's where we pick most of the open projects that we maintain and integrate. I mean, we're all here somehow connected for KubeCon, so I think you know, it does make sense to mention it. So, is there a better model? And that's a question I actually leave for the audience and maybe for discussion later on. Again, I honestly believe that the biggest single the biggest single acceleration that we had over the past 5, 6, 7 years has been not due really strictly from technological platforms, but from the establishment of open standards. That was the key merit of Kubernetes, in my opinion. Okay, it kind of started defining that, and I think that we should start from there. I don't think that's something we should just ignore, drop, or whatever, right? Or even redefine. We should just start from there and then, you know, probably leverage it. Interoperability it is a game-changing approach. It's honestly the very first thing. I've been doing this job for many years, okay? And it is actually the very first thing that I hear about this idea, and it's honestly amazing. And you know, it sounds very promising. Now, of course, the key challenge is about how do we actually make it real? And so it's, you know, that's super interesting. It's a big challenge. That's why I was asking you questions, because it sounds like that could be, you know, a starting point. Again, of course, for us, you know, the whole thing is about reducing cost, increase productivity. We are still in the capital world, and so that's one of the. It has to be one of the key drivers. And then in the end, we strongly believe that, you know, an open model, an open source based model, it's actually more ethical because it's more transparent. It's more, you know, it pushes for collaboration. And so it's, we strongly believe into that, and for us it's a key thing. That's it. I mean, it's super high level, but again, if you want to talk about it, later we will have time. And so it's, you know, we have a lot of real world stories that we can share. Thank you.